Hello and welcome to our live stream on December 27th. We are talking on chapter 26, Working with Federico. And this is almost the last chapter. We have one more week of this, and I hope that everyone enjoys this wonderful book, Violets on the Window. Now, this is a quick summary. Patricia was a young spirit who died when she was 19, and she had lived in a spiritist family, so she knew about heaven. She knew about the processes of heaven. She understood what was going to happen, and therefore she was ready for when death came to her. Well, I don't know about ready. She died pretty early, but she knew what to expect. And this is her book. She wrote while she was in heaven through a medium, Vera, Lúcia, Marinzeck, de Carvalho. And she had actually written more books, I believe, but they're not in English yet. So we just have this book in English, Violets on the Window. I recommend it to everyone. It's wonderful. So before I begin, please subscribe, hit the bell, hit the like button. That will help us with the algorithm. And it's Spiritism is exciting. It explains the spirit world, explains why we're here. Now, let's get right into the book. And this chapter is called Working with Federico. Let me hide the title page and we'll start up. This is what she wrote. I was so proud of receiving my bonus hours. So let me stop there for a second. So their bonus hours is in this low level of heaven, people get in this colony called San Sebastian. And the same thing in the colony of Solar, which is a city above Rio de Janeiro. The colony of San Sebastian is a colony above the city of San Sebastian in the state of Minas Gerais in Brazil. And as they work, each person gets an hour. Now, everyone gets the same rate of pay, except maybe a teacher, they get double or whatever. But they do that in order to reward you. And then what you do is you use those hours to do different things, go to concerts and other things like that. All your basic health needs are all taken care of. Besides, there isn't really any, there's just some sustenance, water and air, and some shelter. You'll never die, you'll never get sick, and you look the way you want to look. So anyways, she says, every worker is entitled to a rest period, but those who work during their breaks earn double. I did not need the rest, so with much enthusiasm, I started working with Federico. When activities were hard, I felt tired, but I would soon recover. My friend had an office in the hospital wing reserved for patients who were in better health conditions. So that you can understand what happened, let me explain our situation. He worked as a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I was the secretary making appointments, filling out forms and directing the patients to the appropriate place. Well, while they talked to Federico, I had nothing to do. So does this sound strange? This is heaven, and he's there. She's filling out forms, probably on the computer, so probably doesn't say that, but on some sort of advanced, laptop. And he's there helping as a psychologist, which that's really the most important thing, because everything you are is in your mind, as he's probably explaining that to people. I'll carry on. Then Federico said, Patricia, would you like to come in and listen to our session so that you may learn the reasons why these brothers and sisters come to talk to me? He goes, yes, I answered happily. It was then I learned about the problems that keep the majority of them under treatment. I would listen without saying a word. Sometimes I felt like laughing. Other times I felt touched. As my grandmother used to say, nothing like helping out to make one understand. Witnessing these sessions and empathizing with other people's problems made me thank the Lord for not having similar problems and for not having created them for myself. Very true. We create most of our problems for ourselves. Most of the problems for those were related to their incarnated loved ones. They would request a visit to their families or to help them. Yet a person cannot help when he or she is still among those needing help. Almost everyone would talk about their incarnate lives on earth and about how they passed away. Federico would listen attentively, asking questions from time to time. Some would complain about the disturbing cries from their relatives, while others would ask for advice on how to avoid listening to the wailing and calling from theirs. Now, let me explain this for those who haven't heard, is In the lower levels of heaven, spirits are still tied to the earth. They don't quite understand the complexity and the overall goodness of the processes of the spirit realm. And of course, that's why I've written my books, especially this book is as a part of a series of 3 books. Heaven and Below, book 1 of Spiritism, talks about heaven, the lower zone, then how spirits guide us. I'm sorry, Spirits and the Spirit Universe is book 2, all about us as spirits. And then How Spirits Guide Us is book 3. That will tell us how our individually and whole nations are guided by the spirit world. So what they don't understand and why they're so preoccupied with their family, they don't understand that people go through trials and tribulations as an edifying curriculum. They go through those trials and tribulation in response to karma they built up, negative or positive. So if the karma in their past life determines the set of classes, you know, and I'm sure you've seen your kind of vicissitudes kind of going one after another. They're mostly serial. Very few of them are parallel, but some are. And so you're learning something and you're put into this physical body because it makes you more open to external stimuli and more vulnerable to waves of emotions that will force you to change your character and your attitude. It will force you to change your personality. That's why we are here on earth. Now, as people go higher in the spirit world, they understand. Even their family, they go through ups and downs. And you know what? No matter what happens, keep this in mind, they're all immortal. It's not the end of the world at all. If they die young, they die old, they go through some pain, but they're going to learn from it. And that's what higher spirits understand. They say, okay, they're in class. It's like sending your child to school or summer camp, and you know they're not going to enjoy all of it, but they might learn something. And that's what you're hoping, right? They might learn to be more disciplined, which we're always hoping for our kids, right? But it's very hard to get that going. Some are quite natural, others not so. So that is really when you get higher, you don't constantly worry about your incarnated family. You worry about them, you want the best for them, but you understand what they're going through. Now, these people going to the psychiatrist's office, even their families they don't understand Spiritism as physical beings on earth, and therefore they always say, oh, I wish Uncle so-and-so or Aunt so-and-so were still here. She could help solve all our problems. Well, no, that's not the way your life was planned. And your aunt or uncle or whatever family member is gone, it was planned that person be gone. There was a reason for it. And therefore, it's all good. I know that it's so easy for me to say. It's so hard for people to think. It's all for a reason. And there's no punishment here on earth. It may seem like punishment to us, but it's all for edifying purposes. We believe we're being punished when bad things happen to us. The same way a 2-year-old believes they're being punished when they get a slap on the hand, or they said, okay, go stand in the corner for a while because you can't write on walls. And you're trying to make that 2-year-old civilized, right? Because if you let them run wild, no one will want to be around them, and they'll be a failure. Same way for us. We will be a failure if we're allowed to be selfish, prideful, vindictive, criminal intent. That has to be taken out of us. And we got that way because we went through life as a primitive spirit. And those selfish attitudes and preconceptions served us in a way, right? We were able to survive. Now, when we're on a higher plane, we have to let go of that. It's not easy. We're very stubborn. Let me carry on. So, so almost everyone would talk about their incarnate lives on earth and how they passed away. Federico listened attentively, asking questions from time to time. Some would complain about the disturbing cries from their relatives, while others would ask for advice on how to avoid listening to the wailing and calling from theirs. You must pray for them, Federico would say calmly, and be patient, for time goes by and soothes everything. My friend would give answers to everyone, advising them wisely. He would also write down the earthly addresses of those in worse distress. When he finished with his office hours, Federico would go to the residences and counsel their incarnate relatives. He would try to help them by encouraging them to find inner solace and stop troubling their departed loved ones. So he's trying to solve the problem two ways. He's trying to help the spirit, and he's helping their physical relatives. Say, look, asking them to, being regretful and asking them to come back is not doing you any good. In fact, there's a family I knew. They had a son who had a difficult brain operation. He was quite impaired. And then he fell into a coma, and he was in a coma for the longest time. And they finally were told by a spiritist medium that their longing for him was keeping him trapped on earth, is that they were not letting him go in their minds. Our minds, as the spirit, and even in the physical body, has more power than one thinks, right? Because when we're little, we think we can do things with our mind. We get older and say, no, we can't move objects with our mind. Most of us. But it does affect other ones in ways we don't understand, because we are spirits, and as thoughts come through, because our thoughts radiate out to everywhere, we hear these thoughts, although not consciously. And so this poor guy was in a coma, but he couldn't really get out of his physical body, because his parents were just like holding him back. That's why you've got to say, God, thank you, for what you're doing to this person. I may not want them to leave early, either a person or a pet or whatever, but I know it's for a purpose. There is a higher purpose. It's just like what we were told by spirits about this pandemic. They said, people will pass on, and mostly those who are not spiritually mature, but some will pass on early. And that is because we want them back in the spirit world to prepare them for something else when they come back. It's just like the spirit Emmanuel, who's the guardian to the great Brazilian medium, Chico Xavier. He was the spirit mentor to Chico Xavier. But before he was that, he came back to Earth. I think he only lived till he was 20. And the only reason he came back is so he could learn modern Portuguese. So when he dictated his books or gave Chico Xavier messages, it wouldn't be in old style Portuguese. It would be in the new, modern style. And therefore, it made much sense. He sent him to Earth. Of course, his parents must say, oh my God, my son died young. And, his family were all regretful, all the things he missed out. No, he was there for a purpose. He did his purpose, and he left. That's the beauty of once you understand Spiritism, you don't even, these things, you understand these, right? You don't understand exactly why they happen, because the plans of Jesus and the spirit world are too complicated for us. Even spirits who take part in helping guide people will say, sometimes we're told to help guide person or help these certain people in certain circumstances, and we don't understand why. Until years later we go, so if they don't understand, we certainly don't. We carry on. There were also different types of complaints. Some thought they were forgotten, especially by their spouses. Some would request to come back, even in their same former physical body. Others did not want to reincarnate to be born in another body, but wanted their old bodies back. One of them even asked to come back in his own body, only 10 years younger. So, of course, all these things are impossible. It's a lot of the Christians, believe in end times that everyone will be reborn in the Great Revelation, and you'll come back in your own body physically, and that will not happen. You will come back. The Great Apocalypse is really us going from a planet of atonement, where we are now, where we pay for our past wrongs, to planet of regeneration. We'll come back, but it will be in a different body, but it'll still be us. That's the important thing. It will still be us. But the spirit world does not want you to go back in your own body, because they want you to learn new things. They don't want you to come back, but you'll be you. That's the important thing. You still will be you, whatever body you're in, whatever gender you choose. You can choose either gender. It's up to you. Or in concert with your spirit mentors, you will come back, and you can never die. And of course, these people are in this, these first really lower levels of heaven. They really haven't taken the time to understand the processes of the spirit world. If they did, they would know that wasn't an option. No, you have to keep moving forward. You can't stay the same. And of course, even here, I get emails and comments on Facebook and other places like, I don't want to come back. I don't want to reincarnate. And I always say, well, once you're in the spirit world, you don't have to reincarnate. Your free will is respected if you're in one of the levels of heaven. If you're below that, it's up to the spirit mentors. But what will happen is you will view the wonderfulness of higher levels of the spirit plane, and you say, well, I want to be there. And then you'll figure out to yourself, like, well, I have some character defects I have to repair. In order to repair those character defects, I have to reincarnate. And you'll come back. But if you want a easier, nicer, more smoother life, do as well as you can in this life, because the karma in this life is already creating your lesson plan for the next life. Now carry on. Sometimes I would think Federico will not get out of this one, but being a great expert on the human spirit, he would talk politely, calm and convincing those capable of a better understanding. Some did not like his answers, but ended up being persuaded anyway. Many would return several times until they managed to overcome all their difficulties, hard part of them. Unfortunately, this occurred because they were so fixated on their problems, they could not concentrate on anything else. Others still seemed to enjoy their problems and therefore required an even more intense form of treatment. Let me describe some of these cases, not for curiosity's sake, but to serve as a lesson to all of us. Of course, we all see this, right? Some people enjoy their hardships. They seem to be. Consciously, they don't. They would say, no, you're ridiculous. I don't enjoy this. But they seem to hang on to it. Listen to this, Dr. Federico, said a gentleman. When you hear what I have to say, you'll agree that I'm right. I was always a hardworking man, having many assets. Honest, not always. I can't lie. I know I can't fool you. I just duped a few suckers in my business. My first wife helped me a lot. We didn't have children. She passed away, so I married another one. My second wife is a beauty, and we had children. Yet I found out this miserable hussy betrayed me, so I tried to kill the wretched louse she was with. But he killed me instead. So I want to go back and take the kids away from her. Yet I don't want revenge. I suffered enough wishing for revenge and have already forgiven both of them. Still, my children will be ruined with her. They will fail, I'm sure. I don't want to go back as a discarded. They wouldn't be able to see me. Couldn't you help me go back? Well, this is so reminiscent of things I've heard in mediums meeting, where people will do something and then it will like happen to them instead. But then they'll still want to do something to the other person because they really haven't understood what's heaven for, right? What's the spirit world trying to do for us? It's trying to make us better. Now, he had learned something because he didn't want revenge, but he didn't want to take care of the children. He didn't want the children to fail, which is noble, but he still doesn't understand the children were put into that situation for a good reason. Let's see what Federico said. Patiently, Federico tried to clarify the situation for him. My brother, while you were among the incarnate, did you ever see a spirit come back to their dead body? After all this time, your body has turned to ashes. This is impossible. I must remind you that everyone, while incarnated, has an opportunity to do the right thing. Your children are not abandoned by God. You can help them. But they won't listen to me. They won't pay attention, the man said. Don't be discouraged without even trying. Have you read the parable of Lazarus and the rich man? He said, yes, Lazarus who was poor and the rich man who died and wanted to come back to warn his brothers, yet he couldn't. Read it again, and this time pay more attention, Federico said. Can you help me? He said, yes, I can. I will go to your home and try to help your family. I really want to go back as an incarnate. Take my children away from her and raise them better. Then Federico said, my brother, you have been reincarnated several times already. If you return remembering, maybe you would try to change for the better. But with the necessary forgetfulness, you would probably err again. Why don't you derive strength by learning good morals? The gentleman left, not very happy. Then Patricia said, Federico, I can't believe you made this request. I thought the Scarnets were more self-aware. And this is a discarnate in heaven, right? So he's basically a pretty good person. He's in the lower level of heaven. He duped a few. This kind of shows you you don't have to be a saint to be in heaven. He says, I duped a few suckers, right? But if I didn't do anything vastly criminal, he wanted to kill the guy, but he failed. So thank heavens he did fail. Because, well, they should be more aware. Still, discarnates don't differ from incarnates that much. You don't become better just because you passed over. Let's all of us remember that. You become better when you learn. While living his physical life, the gentleman didn't worry about raising his children properly. Now he's sincere and he's worried about them, but it's too late. Now he's sincere and he's like the rich man from the parable. I recommended him to read more attentively. Then Patricia said, yes, he made such an incredible request to return to the same physical body. Although they know it's impossible, they tried anyway. If that were possible, many would be going back that way. It's a good thing, isn't it? Said Patricia. Federico went to this man's earthly home and tried his best to remind them of their responsibilities. The following day, he tried to calm him down. He told him his wife was a good mother and that at least she loved her children. The man decided to follow Federico's advice to better himself and to learn so that he could help his children in the future. A lady with suffering expression that pained everyone around her said tearfully, Dr. Federico, I don't want to seem ungrateful. I passed away. I suffered a lot. I wandered in the umbral. The umbral is the lower zone, right? It starts at the crust of the earth, goes to the low levels of heaven. I wandered in the umbral. I was rescued and I felt better. However, I don't like the umbral. It terrifies me and I don't want to wander anymore. I don't want to stay here either. I don't like it here. I'm treated well, yet I receive the same treatment as everyone else. I can't eat meat nor have my cocktails. I hate being discarnated. I really wanted to die. Death is not like what I expected, if at least there was a heaven. Then Federico said, for first, this woman didn't want to give up her material desires. She still wanted to eat, still wanted to drink alcohol, wanted her little cocktail. She liked the earthly pleasures, and she hadn't found yet the higher pleasure of intellectual pleasure, companionship, and love in the spirit world. And some people are like that. Some people will go to heaven and they'll voluntarily go back down so they can eat and do what this woman wants. But eventually they'll come back up again when they are ready. So then Federico said, if there was a heaven as you thought, do you think you would be there? And she said, well, the lady didn't answer. I thought it was strange. She was the first person I heard directly that did not like the colony. Federico continued, you, madam, are unhappy with yourself. You are receiving what the colony can offer. While there are many who are happy here, there are also malcontents like you. What do you really want? And she answered, I don't know. I didn't want to pass away, but I didn't like my incarnate life either. Maybe if I could reincarnate rich, beautiful, and intelligent. That's what this is like wonderful writing. This is like Humanity 101. If I could just be rich, beautiful, and intelligent, I'd be happy. It's like the child. It's like the child saying, if I could just have that bicycle or have that certain toy, I will never want something else again. Of course, we all know how long that lasts, not much. And of course, some of the saddest people I know are rich, because once you're there and then you have nothing else to think about, then you start feeling sorry for yourself. And so it's you make yourself happy or unhappy. Wherever situation you are in, you are the one that determines your mood. So that's important. And then he said, to do what? And she said, well, be happy, enjoy life. Well, Federico said, for how long? He goes, well, if I knew that, I wouldn't be here, she said impatiently. My dear sister, have you tried being happy through work, by being useful? And she said, no. Then he said, have you tried feeling happy by helping others? You need to learn how to love yourself, then learn to love others. You must stop being a needy person and start being a useful one. It's written here in your records that you're well. Why aren't you up to helping out? And she said, I think it's too difficult. Try to be useful at least twice today. Come back tomorrow and we can talk some more. The lady left as she entered, tearfully. So there was this wonderful, on the same vein, this wonderful mediums meeting recorded in one of the magazine articles by Allan Kardec in the 1850s. And they talked to this woman who had died, I think, in her late 20s. She'd had children, small children. And they talked to her and they said, well, how are you doing? Because I don't know. Because I'm kind of bored here. And she was in the umbra or the lower zone, not doing anything. And they said, well, what happened to you? Well, I was a housewife, but I didn't care about my children. I didn't care about my husband. I just kind of, read or this is back in the 1800s, most probably, or amused myself with talking to people and gossip. And she goes, well, what do you want to do? He goes, I don't know. He goes, well, can you pray about it and seek guidance? And she said, prayer? I don't know how to pray. And so she had lived her life like not caring about anything except giving herself pleasure. And not her family, not her husband, not her children, not her own intellectual ability. And this is where she was at. She was bored with death. She was on the lower zone. At least this lady made it to heaven, and she's given a great opportunity. But this one in the magazine by Allan Kardec just was bored with everything. And he goes, well, you want us to help you pray? This is in the magazine. And she goes, no, I don't know. Well, come back tomorrow. Well, then she came back tomorrow. Goes, well, I'm thinking about it, but I'm still not sure. So it was just like this complete lethargy. She had no energy for anything, no intellectual quest. She was just this discarnate, errant spirit who was content, well, not content. She wasn't content with anything, but yet she didn't want to make the effort to better herself. That's where so many of us are. Now, it sounds harsh. And I understand. And when I say better ourselves, I mean study, understand the spirit world, understand yourself, start changing your character. And yet people say, well, I don't have time to do that. I work, 10, 12 hours a day. I'm exhausted. I have all sorts of things to do. I got to take care of the kids on the weekend and the weeknights. I mean, I have no time. And I understand, but you always have time to do something. You have to make time to start looking at yourself and bettering yourself and not believing that spending something or getting the latest dress or the newest car or putting, remodeling that bathroom is going to really make all the difference in the world. It's not. When you die, it's all gone. The earth will go to dust. You will still be alive and you will still be left with yourself. The only thing that's permanent and immortal is your character. Okay, so let me carry on. So she just said, I think it's difficult. So the lady left as she entered tearfully. Then Patricia said, Federico, she complains about being in the infirmary. Why did I have a room all to myself? And he said, well, Patricia, Jesus recommended to us to live while incarnated, treasuring spiritual values, giving proper worth to our true nature, the one that accompanies us after the death of the body. All those who did what Jesus recommended think they're undeserving of a simple treat like being housed for a short period of time in an individual room. For these, it's fortunate just to be here. Others, proud and imprudent spirits, don't like the mix, forgetting that we are all brothers and sisters and that the Father is one. They arrive here as indigents and some demand privileges they didn't earn. So then Patricia wrote, little by little, the lady's attitudes changed. Federico did all he could to make her understand that only working for the light would make her happy. She started to perform some simple tasks, but still grumbling. Federico told her counselors were trying to help her overcome her laziness, otherwise she'd have to reincarnate. The colony does not shelter idle spirits. A gentleman looking some 35 years old entered the room a bit ashamed. Doctor, could you please help me? I like it here. I want to stay. Still, I miss sex. And then Federico said, you like it here because you found the solution to one of the burdens that affect humankind, which is the struggle for survival. You have been given much here, and even the reflexes of your illness have waned. You're sheltered, well-fed, you don't feel hot or cold. In other words, you're comfortable. But at the same time, you yearn for the pleasures offered by the material world. You miss only what you thought was good, the pleasures. I'm going to help you. As a result, you'll not be bothered by the echoes of the pleasures from the physical world or of any other circumstance. It is necessary, however, that you choose with all your heart and attention an objective in the spirit world where you now live and dedicate yourself to it with all your strength. This way, the energies that today bring you to an echo of the past will be channeled to this new goal. I advise you to be useful, to work and to study. Also show interest in doing good to as many brothers and sisters from right around here as you can, and those suffering souls housed in other parts of the hospital. In due course, you'll be partially freed from the echoes of pleasures of the material world, in your case, from sexual desire. Now, this is something many people ask me. Two main things they're going to miss in heaven: eating, which is a great pleasure, and sexual pleasure. And what I say is this, and this is what Federico is saying. You will find higher pleasures, more stimulating pleasures in heaven that will, just like a child who had an old toy, they get a new toy and they forget about the old toy. You will do the same. You'll start learning, you'll start being something big, you'll start going down in earth on missions and tasks and helping people. It'll be all extremely exciting. And that the old earthly desires that were part of our physical body will be forgotten. And why do we have sex? The spirits have told us, and I put this in my series of 3 books, is this: Jesus could have made the earth and had a one sex on earth, which we could have reproduced by ourselves. But what they decided is to break it into 2 sexes in order for people to understand the passive and aggressive side of human nature more easily. So when men and women are married, the man understands the passive and aggressive behavior of the woman, and the woman understands the passive and aggressive sides of the man. So they have to learn. They have to learn this, this complex, this simple heuristics, right? You break down the problem so even us poor humans can figure it out. Because once you get higher and higher spirit like Jesus, you take all the attributes of masculinity and femininity and you combine them and you use the best of each. And you use different parts of each in different circumstances. That's what we'll all become. We'll become one type of personality. Well, I shouldn't say that. We use all the facets of what we've learned. And therefore, that will become less important to you. I carry on. I had heard a woman complain about the same thing before, and Federico told her to turn with love to an activity, either work or study, so that she could be partially freed from those desires. That gentleman was the last one to be seen that day. Since there was some time left, I tried to learn more by asking Federico. She said, "Why would that lady be only partially, not completely freed, since there's no real need for these instincts here?" And he said, "It's the attachment or slavery to any behavior that brings about gluttony, sex, lying, and gossip. Also, the vices which appear harmless and the ones that are really harmful from society's point of view are part of humanity's incessant quest to fill its physical emptiness." Again, that's very true. Let me repeat that. It's part of humanity's incessant quest to fill its physical emptiness. And that's what we really feel. We feel disconnected. We feel lonely. So we want to use up the time. Some people eat, some people, do other things. But it fills up the time and it gives us that little pleasure for that point in time. But that's why when the more you explore spirituality and spiritism, you understand why we're here, and you try to fill up your time with more edifying subjects. That doesn't mean you can't eat or make love or do any of those things. Absolutely, carry on. Don't deny yourself, but don't let that rule you. Right? Easier said than done, I'm sure, for many people. Then I'll carry on. Man is the sum of all experiences. This is what Federico is saying. Man is the sum of all experiences by which humanity has grown throughout the uncountable millennia known to us. The first sense to manifest itself in a living being was touch, and it was through that man felt his first pleasures. The second, and a big one, was survival. In other words, the need to feed oneself and to procreate. Still, talking specifically about procreation, the others being on the same level. It is people's biggest dilemma since they condemn promiscuous sex, yet they don't explain or teach why they have it at all. If it's bad, why have it? If it's good, why repress it? The key to the question is in its origin. If you take a river and build a dam in the middle of its course, because you don't want the waters to run in that riverbed anymore, then your work will be endlessly having to reinforce that dam every day. Its waters must continually be repressed, and each day they'll grow stronger and have more pressure. If you drop your guard, the dam will break, and its devastating action will be felt 1,000 times stronger than before when it was in its normal course. It's the same with this incredible vital energy. Its first surge is to seduce the individual with pleasure so as to guarantee the continuation of the human species. The human being then becomes a slave to this energy, a mere reproducer of the species, because the progeny is heavy on the soldiers of the parents. The intelligence's shrewdness takes over so as not to abstain from pleasure and find ways to avoid progeny and to keep the pleasure only. Other individuals, due to devotion or faith, abstain from the use of this energy altogether, and this can, in the near future, make the dam burst out and do even more harm. Conversely, this can make the energy dormant, drying out the riverbed and still causing damage. Instead of building a dam or deadening the energy, some human beings try to find out where this energy, capable of making a living human being to be born, comes from. Recognizing that this energy is born from the eternal being itself, they can divert it from the riverbed of worldly pleasures, which provide for the perpetuation of the species, and redirect it to the spiritualization of the individual, providing the perpetuation of the soul. Freedom cannot be achieved by suppression, but only from the understanding of whom human beings are. As a result, they use all their energy that sustains them to enable themselves to be reborn as a new kind of human being, a cosmic citizen no longer interested in selfish pleasures, but in the glorification of the manifestation of God in mankind and in all its children. So, what Federico is saying is you find a higher purpose, and that becomes less important. It's just like when you are working at something you love, you never feel hungry, even though you may not have eaten for 12 hours. You don't feel hungry because your mind is on something else. You may not even think about love because your mind is on something else. And that is something for all of us to work on. I haven't gotten there yet. I'll tell you right now, I still like my food and other things. I am not where I should be, but I'm trying. But that is something that we're all here on earth in multiple lives to attempt to become better. Then he carried on. He goes, Patricia, I couldn't talk to that man like I'm talking to you now. He wouldn't understand it. He's still a slave to his carnal vices. And even if he finds a greater purpose for his life, he'll be just partially freed, since only those who do as I just explained will be freed completely. He wouldn't understand, as much as only a few do, what Paul of Tarsus said, nature suffers and moans from labor pains until the Son of Man is born. After a few days working with Federico, with whom I learned so much, I asked him if he liked what he was doing. And he said, for a long time, Patricia, I've been studying human beings' behavior in all its facets. There is no work I don't like. I'm happy helping out. And then she said, I saw so many different things in these few months as a discarnate. What will incarnates think when they read what I am describing? Will they laugh? Will they be amazed? Will they doubt? Well, only by passing over can one verify it. That's so true. You really don't know what is happening. And I think it's very fascinating what he said about the earthly pleasures. And it's something, and of course, when these earthly pleasures, we go to heaven, and how we grow out of that. And that's something everyone's going to have to think about, is how we can rise above and work towards the greater good, and work towards really the veracity of divine love and the divine justice that comes from the love of Jesus and all the spirits around him. And we just try every day. You know, we fail a little every day. Everyone does that. I do, all constantly. But if we can just do a little bit better and, you know, put away that Don't do that porn, right? Trying to get off of that if one can. Diminish that. Eat sparingly. Stop gossiping. All these things can really help a person. And look, I've been all there myself and failed many, many times. I still am failing, but I think I am improving somewhat. And I've written a book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism, which also goes through how do you prepare yourself on earth to be in heaven and to rise in heaven, to ascend into heaven. Because going to heaven is just like going to a place and go, oh, I want to work for that place. That looks exciting. I want to work for that organization. Well, you can't just say, hey, I want to work for you. I am ignorant. I don't know anything, and I don't really like to work, but I really want to I like your architecture building. I just want to be there. Well, they'll say, well, sorry, no. Come back when you're ready. Well, it's the same thing with heaven. It's, as Jesus said, it's a narrow door, but it's possible to enter. And in summary, try to be a good person, follow the golden rule. But in this book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Heaven, it's the Spirit on Release. I gave a 24 stanza poem, very short stanzas. Trust in God in yourself was the first stanza. That's about the length of them. I explained what each stanza means and explained what the spirit world meant by that, and then how did you achieve it. And if you can go through that and you understand what the spirit world really wants us to do while we're on this planet, help people, be positive influences, don't be too judgmental, open your heart, study, work hard, keep a positive attitude, all those things. And the way he does the poem, is one stage to the next stage, because you have to build upon these. And if you really want to get to that narrow door in heaven, of course, you can read the Bible. There's many other ways of doing that, but I would recommend you look at this book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism, because the spirit world is really telling us how we should prepare to become a successful spirit. And when we get to heaven, we'll be like Patricia. We'll know these things. We won't be like the guy says, put me back in my physical body, except, like I would ask, right? Make me 10 years younger, and I want all my hair this time, right? And I want to look better. But besides that, put me back in my physical body. So, I mean, you won't say that. You'll understand. When you get to heaven, you'll understand the rules of the game. You'll understand the atmosphere. You'll know that you're not, everyone is there. You should love everyone. Try to be humble. Learn what you can. Anyway, I want to say, I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. New Year's is coming up. Try to be safe. And God bless to everyone. God bless.